Welcome back to Sidewalk, Skyline podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Rogers, and today's guest is Julie Hunter, who works as the executive director at the Windsor Life Centre. Windsor Life Centre is a faith-based residential treatment center for women recovering from drug and alcohol addictions. The center began about 10 years ago on the property of Windsor Christian Fellowship, and it really grew out of the vision and leadership of Cathy Ciaramitaro. Welcome, Julie. Great to have you on the podcast today.
Thank you so much, Kevin. It's great to be here.
Yeah, I was thinking before the podcast that you and I we cross paths occasionally, and I think it was probably while our grandkids were playing soccer that we started talking about having you on the podcast, and that was in the summertime, and now we're getting to winter, but I'm glad that we could work it out.
I am
Um,
as well. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
yeah, I'm gonna confess my ignorance and my curiosity that I don't know a lot about you. Um, so, Julie, I'd love to hear your story and your journey to Jesus and how that brought you to become a director at a recovery home.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, I'm happy to share. I love the work I do. I love seeing women on a healthier journey, and I actually feel like that's something God just placed in me from a young girl. So, I grew up. My parents actually gave their life to Jesus when I was a young child. My dad actually first when I was 3, and my mom when I was 8. So I only remember growing up in church and loving the Lord. When I was 15, I remember having a precise moment of deciding that I would always follow God. So I didn't do everything right as a teenager, but I do always recall loving the Lord and felt His guidance on my life's journey. And I just remember in high school having friends that were from difficult situations in their living in their homes, and I remember just wanting to, particularly women, girls, we were girls then, but just wanting to bring them home and saying to my mom, like, so and so and so and so, they need a safe place to live, can I bring them home, mom? Can we just add them to our family? And my mom saying, honey, you just can't just grab kids and bring them into your home. It doesn't work like that. And I'm like, well, why can't it work like that? I want them safe, I want them loved, because I felt loved in my home. I had the benefit blessing of having two parents that loved me very much. Now they've been married 62 years, and I just felt always very supported. So I wanted other women, particularly, to know that support as well.
Yeah.
Um,
You
Go
grew
ahead.
up, did you grow up in Windsor?
I didn't. I grew up in the county. I grew up
Okay.
in Woodsley, the big town of Woodsley, in the county.
Been
Uh,
there, been there.
yeah. I actually know your sister quite well.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
Well, your sister does work at WLC, but she was a friend for a long time from WCF. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Um,
Anyway, I was just going to say, so I just
yeah,
feel like God always put it in me to want to help women be safe and in a better spot and feel loved. So I feel like the Lord did that. I went on a journey. I have a phys ed degree, which has served me well with for my kids being coaching their sports, and also I play sports, so I played along with them. But then I also morphed that into Windsor Life Center when I started here. So let me back up a little bit. I also am a nurse. So I was a nurse for 31 years. I was in Detroit for 21 years. I love nursing. I love hands-on, again, caring for people, showing them the love of Jesus. That was always so important to me. When Windsor Life Center opened, even when they were first in discussions, my heart just leaped with want to be involved and help women, want to love women, want to show them the love of God. So in when they first started talking about it, I had a expressed my interest to want to be involved in some way. When they first were going to open, I met with she was the program coordinator then, and just said, how can I be involved? And it was funny because in that conversation, she said, well, what do you love to do? I said, well, I love the word of God. So I'd love to teach Bible study. And then we chat a little bit more. And I said, oh, I have a phys ed degree and I like sports. And she's like, well, no offense, Julie, but we are our church is right on the grounds, and probably I could probably get a number of Bible study teachers, but I don't know that I have anyone that could teach sports. So would you consider that role coming in as a facilitator in sports, teaching sports to the girls? Little did I know how the Lord would utilize that, and then I would still be doing that 10 years later. Again, I like sports, so I love to play with them. So I didn't know how the Lord would utilize that though, because in sports there's boundaries, right? There's rules. You
Hmm.
have to have
Hmm.
rules, otherwise it's chaos. There's not. It's not a sport if you don't play within the boundaries of the rules. So that really crossed over to the women that I serve to show like boundaries are necessary, right?
Yeah.
Rules are necessary to for safety for everyone.
It's interesting that, even as a kid in high school, God was already shaping your heart for a lifetime of caring and helping, right?
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, yeah. I have the similar experience. I remember like growing up as a pastor's kid, and part of growing up as a pastor's kid, for me was saying that's the last thing in the world I want to do. But there was something that was being shaped in my heart through observation. I remember one of my early birthdays. I think maybe when I was turning 10 or something, and being with my dad. I had some birthday cash, and we were going to go shopping. I was going to go buy myself some toy or something, and as we're driving through the city of Cambridge, Galt as it was known, my dad saw somebody that he knew, and this guy was an alcoholic, and he was at the roadside. And I remember my dad pulling over, and I don't know what the guy's name was. Say it was Joe, and rolling down the window. Hello, Joe. Are you okay? And Joe getting in the car, and Joe was intoxicated, and I'm this little boy sitting in the back seat listening to my dad ministering to this guy, and some of those experiences as a kid just opened up my heart to see that there was a real hurting world around us. Even though growing up in church, I lived a very sheltered, protected life. I knew that there was a hurting world, and so I'm fascinated when you talk about, wanting to bring girls home to live in your house. And now what are you doing? You're bringing girls to live in the house, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. God's
Yeah.
good that way. Yeah. Um, so how long have you been a part of Windsor Christian Fellowship?
Uh, church here for so I used to go to a small church in Woodsley, still friends with that pastor, and
Hmm.
we had his blessing when we moved to Windsor Christian Fellowship. We made sure of that. So we've been here now 28 years.
That's a significant amount of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Grateful for
So
my church community. Grateful. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Now, Windsor Christian Fellowship, I mean, that's a whole podcast episode all by itself. I should probably try to get Pastor Rick and Kathy on sometime. But they
Well,
started,
Pastor RJ and Pastor Mary now,
yeah, now,
oversee the
yeah,
church.
that's yeah,
Yeah.
of course, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There's RJ is Rick's son, yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
But going back to the 70s, it started as a Bible study group that were looking at Windsor and saying, we need a new church here, and
We need
and
a pastor.
yep, and Rick Ciaramitaro, over the many years that he served as pastor, um, WCF was always a place that was willing to venture out and to do things that weren't being done, always willing to be innovative and try new things, And so it wasn't too surprising that Rick's wife Cathy would have a burden for women that needed recovery. Do you want to talk a little bit about sort of the origin story?
Sure.
And
Interesting. Go ahead.
yeah, no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, interesting is that I was leading Bible studies like years back here in WCF. And in my Bible study group, a couple of gals had joined there who I knew were struggling with addiction and difficult lifestyles. And I remember like bringing it up and saying, are there people in the church that could take these girls in? Like, they love the Lord and they just need safe places. And, it's, they want to go on with their lives too, but we need help. And I just remember my children were younger then. We're probably going back now 15 to 20 years ago, and my kids were young, and I knew that I couldn't, wouldn't even have the permission of my husband to bring them into my home. And so I was looking for answers and help. And I remember being told it was on Pastor Cathy's heart to build a women's treatment facility. And I was like, but when? Like, I need this now. These ladies are in my Bible study, and I need help for them now. And I just remember feeling desperate. And then a few years later, again, when I heard the home was really going to open, and that's a phenomenal story. Pastor Cathy had wanted to do it for a number of years, but the project looked too ominous, and she just was wrestling with the Lord, saying, I can't do this, Lord. I won't. It's just such a big project. I don't even know where to start. And the Lord was little by little bringing people across her pathway. Um, uh, One of our current board members is also a board member with Life Outreach International, and James Robson gave a significant amount of money to Pastor Cathy and said, I hear you have a project on your heart. It's a good one. Do it.
Wow.
That was sort of the final push that she needed to say, I need to do this. I have this large sum of money, and I really need to do this. So she moved forward. She started talking more and gathering what we call ambassadors, and we still have an ambassador team that help fundraise for the home. They started collecting around her just people that were also interested in helping women and their families, and to move forward in a positive way, in a healthier way. So the last piece is that to the puzzle, we had lots of, if I am not going to really mention anyone, because if I mention builders, I'll have to mention all of them that were involved in building the home. But I will say this, and that is that the Rosati family, the Rosati brothers, did
Hmm.
build our home. There was many other people that were involved. We were thankful to all of them. But there was there was going to be a mortgage of $300,000 that was left, and Pastor Cathy was wrestling with the Lord, saying, "Lord, this is a brand new thing. I'm going to have to believe, have faith for salaries for people, for just this handful of staff, right? Initially, I I I I don't want to have to believe for a mortgage to pay a monthly mortgage on top of everything else." And she was just calling out to the Lord and just, sharing her heart and communication with him. And someone at the last hour, when before the bank said, no, this is it, we're going to go into a mortgage, said, how much do you need? And she said $300,000. And they wrote a check. And
Wow.
so it was all paid for. The home was
Yeah.
paid for. And then, she'll say, then I just had to believe for salaries for staff.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that was the rudimentary start, and it's just grown tremendously. Pastor Cathy is still the chairman of the board.
Hmm.
We've got a wonderful, dedicated board. We're so grateful for them, and that's where it started. So I came in at from the beginning. I mentioned that I said I would do a sports program, so I weekly came in as a volunteer doing a sports program. Quickly fell in love with the ladies, quickly wanted to do everything I could just to love on them and show the love of Jesus, and show them that Jesus is not about shame. He is
Yeah.
about reconciliation. He is about identity. He is about value and self worth. And I just wanted them to know that. I still want them to know that. So that's how I came in. I would do a Bible study at the end of every night. So I was just happy to spend the evenings with them. And I did that for 7 years before I was asked to take this role as executive director.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned my sister Lynn, who has worked there as well, and I think still works there.
Yep.
Yeah,
I love you,
and
sister.
yeah, I love her too. But again, like yourself, Lynn didn't grow up surrounded by addiction and chaos. She grew up, in a very sheltered Christian home, but her heart is made for this kind of ministry. She loves the women. She loves the rough edges and just the gut level honesty that you encounter. And yeah, and
Very true.
sometimes people who have had a horrific life with a lot of brokenness also have a tremendous capacity to help others that have been in need of recovery.
Mhm.
But sometimes God calls people that don't have never been drunk, never got stoned, never experimented much with anything, and yet it's a ministry of the heart that makes the difference. No matter what a person's background is,
Yeah,
God uses all kinds of people.
I would agree. If you genuinely love Jesus, you genuinely love need to love people, and
Yeah,
whatever that looks like where he calls you to be. For me, it's empowering women to
yeah.
be the moms they want to be, to
Mm-hmm.
be the women they want to be, to be able to walk successful lives and have a good career. I'm really big to try to encourage education with our women. We just did a St. Clair College tour on Friday, and just to watch their eyes sparkle at possibilities. And I always tell the girls, you have options. You're not pegged into a dark place where you have no options. You have options. And just to watch their eyes light up with that possibility, I love it.
Mm. So there's a lot of different 12-step programs, some that are residential. Um, but what would you say distinguishes your program from the others? What makes you unique in that landscape?
Well, you know, potentially the faith base, there's, is one big piece.
Very
And
big, yeah.
I think sobriety is one thing, and recovery and healing of the heart that Jesus does is another piece. Um, I, what I've seen Jesus do, because really drugs and alcohol addiction, as I know you've seen, are really just covering up pain. So early traumas in life, early abuse in life, that's just the coping that our women have grabbed onto, and then it grabbed them. So none of them would have started thinking, oh, you know, one day I'll be an addict, right? It's just, that's what they use to cover up pain. People use different things. That's what they used, and it got them. So really, I think our program helps look at the traumas and the pains for healing, because
Mm,
those wounds uh, often need to be opened up gently and gradually for healing. And it's Jesus that brings healing. It's Jesus that has forgiven us of so much, that helps us forgive others who have done not good things. I say to our women, there are things that were done to you as a child that you had no control over, and those things will be wrong. They will continue to be wrong. Those um, things that happened, but there are choices that you made then later in life that were were also wrong. And we own what is ours to own, regardless of whether we're in addiction or not. We will own what is ours to own, and then there are sometimes just things we need to forgive other people for, and there are things that are so hard and terrible that only Jesus can help us do that. So I watched them walk through that. So I think that that's something that's unique to our program. It is unique that we have a long-term program. Now, I am going to say this. We have always been, since we opened, a year-long program. As of this coming January 2024, we are changing to be a 6-month program. A couple of reasons. One is for ladies, when they come in and you're 2 months and you're sober and you're feeling good and you're having some healing, and you're a mom and you have kids and you're like, I just need to go. I need to get out. I feel better. I feel like my head is in a good space. We want to keep them as long as possible just for more healing and to keep them out of, I call it the 3 Ps, the old playgrounds, the old playthings, and the old people we used to hang with. So the longer they're away from those things and can be in around love and safety and non-judgment and just walking in a healthy environment is helpful to them. But again, a year is a long time, right, for a mom to be away from her kids. So we are hopeful that that will help encourage women to stay the course. 6 months, half a year seems less ominous than a total year. And then on the other side, we do have aftercare program. We actually have 6 transition beds. So ladies, after they graduate, they can. There is a possibility of them staying. Bed availability is a piece of that. For another 6 to 12 months, where they can stay, they can start to walk up more freedom, get a job, go to school, but still have accountability and being in a safe environment. So, and then we have aftercare. So for those graduates, they have free aftercare for their lifetime. So if there's 2 Zoom meetings and a one-on-one for the first year, but after that, as crisis rises up, they have a person that is dedicated to say, hey, give me a call and we'll talk. We'll set up an appointment and let's just talk through what's going on in your life.
Yeah. Um, as I understand it, there's 3 stages that the women go through: the intake and stability phase,
Yeah,
the um, working phase, and the transition aftercare phase. So
yeah,
walk me through. I'm a girl, and I'm 5 days sober, and I'm now living at Windsor Life Centre. Um, can you talk me down from the ledge here? What am I going to be dealing with?
yeah. So the first thing a gal would do is call the center and ask to talk to the intake coordinator, who will begin that conversation of where you at right now, what's going on. She'll set up a time for an assessment, and then often have them check in if there's no space. There are good reasons to have a little bit of time in between the conversation, because readiness is really important. If a gal is lots of times they want help, but if you just want help for the minute, then a bed can be a revolving door, right?
Yeah,
But for when our intake coordinator, who is great at what she does, begins to work and help them even start in that getting ready process. When they come through the doors, they're more likely to stay. So that would be the first. They would call the center. They would ask to talk to the intake coordinator, who would begin the communication dialogue with them until they come. Finally, have a scheduled date. They get through our doors, and then it is that first week, it is just get acclimatized, so acclimated to your setting. So they really are in an intake room by themselves, but they have a buddy assigned to them that's in program that will constantly check on them. They can sleep more, they can eat more, they can really just kind of come out and test the waters, see what's going on, step into a class if they want to. And so they've got actually a week to do that. But by day 7, they're heading into program, and we have classes. First 3 months, well, we've got classes that look at the recovery side, and then we've got practical classes. So in the first 3 months, we have classes like seeking safety, 12 smart things, conflict resolution, boundaries. In the last 3 months, we have classes that become a bit more practical, like budgeting, um, finances, parenting, if they're a parent, relationships, healthy relationships. What does that look like? Um, and they continue with recovery work.
Mhm.
So I guess did I answer that?
Yeah, yeah. So, how many? Tell me about the facility. It was built new for this express purpose, and so tell me about the facility. Tell me how many beds and
Okay.
all that kind of piece.
I will tell you, and you see it because the soccer fields are behind, right? But the
Yeah,
building itself is beautiful,
it is.
and it behind we have big windows behind the building, and it overlooks rolling hills. And behind the rolling hills, what you can't see unless you're back there, is soccer fields. So in the summer, children play soccer back there, but it's well behind the home. So the home is a beautiful building, inside and out. It is aesthetically pretty. So we have 12 beds, not including the two intake beds, but we have 12 program beds for gals in the 6 month program. And then we have 6 beds on the opposite side of the hallway for transition. We call it phase three. So there's phase one, which is up to 3 months, phase two, which is 3 months to 6 months, and then the transition phase. And there are increased uh freedom levels as they go through, and they can start to feel out a little bit more freedom as far as passes, because uh the goal is for ladies to be able to deal with situations and be tested on that with passes and things, and then come back and talk about it. What happened? How'd you feel? What were triggers? What tools did you use that you've begun to learn now to fight some of those triggers, right? So yeah, so that if the house is full, now we also have two live-in staff so that are there. Quite often those are graduates. We do have one is a graduate currently. Quite often those are graduates who have chosen to stay in a live-in staff position, and and continue on with their lives as well while they live there.
The the relational aspect of learning how to relate to others, learning how to relate to other women,
Hmm.
I imagine is a huge part of it.
Yeah.
Um, the recent podcast, I interviewed Aaron White,
Yes,
who
I
just
watched that.
wrote,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I was really struck by what Aaron was saying about just the malaise in our culture. That we're not, if we're going to help people in recovery, it's not about helping them to become model Canadians, because something in our society is not well. We have a world that cherishes independence and leads us to isolation,
Yeah.
and you got to do it on your own. You got to be independent, and just what are you seeing in reality?
You know what? Addiction hides in isolation a lot of the time, right? Shame is so great uh, for our women when they come through. Shame is so great. That's why I call our home a non-judgmental, safe home where they will be loved. Because there is no point to be pointing fingers at, you did this or you did this. They know that. They're so full
Yeah.
of shame. They just feel like they have no value. And so um, to have a community of women around them that will love them. I hear many girls say, it's a bubble there, right, Julie? Like that's not the real world, because my staff is kind. They're not cursing, swearing, yelling at them. Not that we do have, we do set boundaries as well, right? And
And you
they're
may have reasons to want to curse at them.
sometimes. Um, so, but you know what? they feel supported. They may
Mhm.
not always agree. You know what? When they're wrestling with, I want to do what I want to do, it is such a battle, and you watch them battle it, and you know the wounds are so deep. Um, and one thing I know is that, if it crosses a point where we are working harder than they are working, it's not going to work, right? It needs to be a combined effort. You want it, and you just need us to come alongside and love you and encourage you and help you and be, and you have to have a community to do that, right? That they cannot do that alone.
Mhm.
I appreciate, the church being right here for them too. They come to church Wednesdays and Sundays, and that becomes a bigger community around them. To also encourage them. I still um, run sports with them. I do a gym program with them, but I play pickleball. Okay, and that's very enjoyable to me. So I bring the girls in. So on Monday night here, I have several ladies at the home that love to play pickleball. I taught to play pickleball, and they like it too. So on Monday evenings, it's a women's night of pickleball, and so there are women that come in, and my girls come over and they play, and to watch, them just play and have fun and just be, a woman having fun and laughing and playing is so healthy for them. I love it.
Yeah. Are there things in your role here that have uh, broken your heart?
Oh my gosh, over and over. To
Yeah.
watch women walk out breaks my heart every time. It's
Yeah.
true, and I have so many reach back out. I have women, I've run across them and they say, "Hey, Julie, you maybe don't remember me, but I was in the program." Now, I've been in this role for 3 years. I started the fall of the pandemic, fall 2020. I started in this role. But before that, I was volunteering teaching the sports program every week. So I still run into women who will say, "Hey, do you remember me?" And most of the time I do. And so I'll say, "Yeah, I do." And they'll say, "Hey, I left at 3 months, but I want you to know." Like this one gal I ran into, she was at a grocery store, and she said, "Julie, you guys really loved me so much, and you taught me Jesus." And I left there prematurely because I was too pig-headed and I wanted to do my own thing. And so she said I left. I ended up going to a darker spot in my life, but that caused me to look back and go, what did I have there? And I found Jesus. And so I got back on track with him. I went to school. I'm working a job. I'm going to school, and I'm sober now. Praise
Oh,
Jesus. Right. So
yeah.
I actually hear that a gal that left and just broke my heart. And I remember sitting with her and just saying, "Don't do this. Like, you
Mm.
have options. Like, we're here for you, right?" But she decided to leave, and just not too long ago, she reached out, found me on Facebook, and said, "Julie, I just want to thank you so much. You loved me. You were right. I'm sorry I couldn't see it then, but I want you to know that I got so much out of my time there. I just value it." So while that's heartwarming, it is also painful for myself and all of our staff and for the women that are still in program. They watch women walk out to know what they're going to do. I mean, I don't know. A woman can say it's this reason or this reason I'm going to leave. There's generally the reason she's going to leave, and they know it. And so they're struggling to stay in. And so it's hard on them. It's hard on our hearts because we love them so much and we know that God's got a better plan and a pathway for them. If they'll just hang in there, they'll get it. Sometimes it's down the road that that happens. One thing I know, what I've learned in this world, um, they they may not always get it with us, but I can say that the majority of women come to know Jesus in their time with us, and for me, that's the win. I used to
Yeah.
work I did business for my hospital in the States for 11 years. To my boss, not to me, because I just said, Jesus, if you're giving me this role to do, I'm just going to love people.
Hmm.
And if business comes from my hospital because of it, that's a bonus. But I'm just going to love people and care about their stories. So I traveled for my hospital and did that. But to my boss, I put numbers on a chart, right? I got accolades for
Yeah.
what I did. I knew it was Jesus' favor in my life. So I wouldn't really claim that for myself. But I just be like, but that was to my boss. But here, if you're going to ask me success, when women come to know Jesus, even if they didn't with us, which they usually do, but if they didn't, I know the seeds were planted, and I trust the Lord to have other people come along and water and harvest that. But that's my definition of success.
Mm, that's that's it. That's it right there for sure.
Because
Um,
when they come to know Him, there's healing in their hearts. They start to know their identity in Him. They start to forgive people that they've been kept in bondage because they couldn't forgive. They start, the shame starts to get off of them. And I always tell them, what's past is past. We can do nothing about that, but it doesn't have to define what your future looks like. And you can live a healthy and wholesome and successful life moving forward. If that means you're in a grocery store, I know somebody that graduated with us, and she's the happiest teller in a grocery store. I said, your line up is going to be the longest because you got that big smile and you got the joy of the Lord, and people are going to want to come through to see you because they need that. It doesn't matter what area you go into. I want them to be able to support themselves in a career. But in her case, she had a child and she couldn't go back to school. She needed to be able to uh, raise him. So I said, whatever you do, we do unto the Lord, and you'll be able to tell your story when the Holy Spirit tells you to do so, and help people wherever you go.
if you could have, if you could, dream a bigger dream for the center, what would that look like?
Oh my gosh. I would love to bust out the walls, to have more space for women. Um, I would love I would love to have more transition homes in Windsor, in our area. I mean, every woman doesn't settle in our area, and women come from across Canada to our center. But many do settle here because this is a community they have found support in. But I would love for transition homes, safe places for them to go to have housing, but be safe and not have to go back into areas that could, create hardship for them. So I guess that I would love more room in our center, and I would love to have transition places for them when they do leave us, to have safe places to go.
That's a good dream. Uh, what, how much does it cost to take a woman through the program, and how is it funded?
So good question. Thank you. It takes about 60. Well, okay. So when they were staying with us a year, I would have said 65,000. I actually haven't looked at numbers for the 6 month, but I'm guessing half of that was about 5,500 a month for, so I guess that will stay. It'll just be 6 months instead of a year. We are privately funded, so we don't get government assistance. So, yeah, so it is the Lord's faithfulness through uh, people who see the importance, donors, sponsors for our events. We have a big walkathon in the spring. We have a gala that just happened in the fall. Um, that are very helpful to us. Being a monthly sponsor is always helpful because knowing those monthly funds that will come in is very helpful for your budgeting. And then the events are bonuses with extra funds to do a few extra things. The Lord has always provided. I am grateful that I came in when I did, because I do know that it was hard plowing in the early years, right? You haven't built credibility. People don't know if they want to invest their money into you. Um, but so many beautiful stories came out of those early years, and continue to come out. So I have seen the Lord do incredible things. But yes, it is always just the Lord's hand of faithfulness through people, provision, His provision.
Yeah. I know that it's important to protect anonymity, and we don't want to name names without people's permission, but are there a couple examples that really stick to you personally, of stories of women that you were able to witness the miracle and be forever changed by it? Is there a couple that you want to talk about?
Yeah, sure. So many. And I do have permission because they've shared it, given us permission to share these ones that I'll share. And we put a quarterly newsletter out. Well, actually, not quarterly. 3 times a year, we put a newsletter out, and their stories have been in that. And again, I share as they've given me permission to do so. But one gal, she came through our door a few years back, and she was so malnourished, and just she came at the late hour. The intake coordinator then was waiting for her to come. She didn't come at the time she was supposed to, and she said she came. She was in the back of a pickup truck and dropped off, and just looked so malnourished and thin. Um, anyway, she came through our doors, this gal, and she said her name is Melissa, and she said she knew that uh, she had peace the moment she came through, and she said, I knew I could never go back or I would die. She had actually overdosed 10 times and been brought back, and she said, I knew that I was playing a type of Russian roulette, and a, a bullet, so to say, would get me. So she said, I knew I couldn't go back. And she is a very grateful gal. She was from the very beginning, and she'd be grateful for a bed and grateful for meals and grateful for everything. So, when others sometimes will be expecting and complaining, she was just grateful. And she was there through the pandemic too, right? And she just always found things to be grateful for, which is a big key, right? Gratitude. So anyway, but before coming to us, she was had lost everything. She said, I had houses, Julie, I had cars, and we'd lost it all to substance abuse. And she was living in a tent in a park, and her life was chaos. She'd been separated from her little boy. Her a sibling was raising her little boy, and she was heartbroken about that, and just began the healing journey with us, and looking at those traumas and hard things in her life that had happened that just needed healing, and need she gave her life to Jesus in her time there. And the other side of her graduation, she's still walking out recovery and has her little boy back in her life, and she's a full-time mama, and she works and helps her father out, and she's doing good. And this is cool too. So it was a church ministry in her area that helped her and poured into her down there, and now she is back in that church, and she's in a feeding program, feeding homeless and those in substance abuse, pouring back into that community that poured into her and helped her get to us.
Oh, it's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell
She's
me
lovely. I
another.
love her so
Tell me
much.
another one. Tell me another one.
All right. Another gal, uh, she grew up in foster care. So by the age of 18, she was in 20 different foster homes, hospitalizations, hotels, just a rough life. And hard things happen to this gal, and she's really just a smart gal, and she's a nice gal. And so you can imagine having really, I mean, I can't imagine, but just no support, no attachments, because you couldn't, because you didn't know where you'd be next. And she's now walking out recovery, just a little over 2 years. She's doing great. She works full time, and she plays pickleball with us, and she just works hard. And you watch her love on the other women, and she is just what she can offer, sometimes understanding and knowing the lifestyle. When I watch her encourage the ladies, um, it's just beautiful. It's a beautiful thing to watch her be poured back into. And she straight up says, like, she stayed in our transition space as well, and she just said, Julie, I wouldn't have remained sober if I couldn't have done that. And again, the longer they can walk out recovery, the stronger they get, the stronger they get. So it's just been beautiful watching her um, begin life again, and just She's a joy.
Well, the world can be a truly dark place, and I think every one of us are touched by the darkness in some way. But you're sharing good news today, that Jesus changes lives, and that there is a well-lit path for people to go on. And Julie, I just am impressed too that your love for Jesus, it started when you were young, and that you got his heart right away for hurting girls, and God has given you the desires of your heart to be able to serve him in that way. So, Julie,
Yes.
thanks so much for being on the podcast. And as usual, we'll put links in the show notes so people can track you guys down and reach out for help. And hopefully, there'll be some people that also say that speaks to me, and I wanna be a supporter. And they'll be able to find out how to do that from your website.
Yes, absolutely. We'd be grateful. So let me just say in closing, thank you again, Pastor Kevin, for having me on. And I just want to stress that it is a privilege and an honor to begin or to be able to work with these beautiful ladies. I call them my beautiful leaders in training,
Mhm.
I love them so much. It's a privilege and an honor, and I just feel grateful that God called me and He gave me the opportunity to do what He put on my heart. It is. I love it.
Yeah. When we serve the least of these, we become students. We become the learners, and God does so much to expand our understanding and increase our capacity to love. So thank you for being obedient to Him, Julie. We'll
Thank
talk.
you too.
If you know a woman that's dealing with addiction issues, perhaps maybe you need to give Julie Hunter a call. I'll have information in the show notes so that you can track down um, Windsor Windsor Life Centre, and perhaps that's the answer that you've been praying for. On our next episode, I went to the Our City Scarborough conference, and the plenary speaker for the day was David Wells. David Wells, of course, is well known internationally as the General Superintendent of the Pentecostal Assemblies of Canada. He's also really, I think, one of the key people involved in birthing Mission Canada many years ago now. And he is going to bring us an inspiring message about serving in the urban centers. So join us again. Until that time, I'm your host, Kevin Rogers, and you've been listening to Sidewalk, Skyline Podcast.